Hit me.
From Studio A in Arcata, behind the redwood curtain, it's time for...
Succotash.
Succotash Clips, the original comedy soundcast featuring snippets from comedy...
Soundcast.
And here's your host from up the coast, practically unknown outside of comedy soundcasting, comedy soundcaster, Tyson Saner.
It is middle of the night. No, it's not. It's just late night. Saluton. Estas me, Tyson Saner. I will be your host for the duration of this penultimate episode of Succotash, the comedy soundcast. And as you may or may not know, I've been combing the internet far and wide, more or less, to bring you a few tastes of comedy soundcasting to your hungry ear-hippos for a few years now. You are about to hear what is likely to be the last typical clip-style version of Succotash, the comedy soundcast for the foreseeable future. But don't dismay, this coming break is being called a hiatus because of the temporary nature that the term implies. The most likely scenario is that the show will return in some form or another, perhaps exactly the same form as you're about to hear. Perhaps not, who can say? And while that question hangs in the air, can I tempt you with some clippage? I've got clips from Games for the End of the World, Refried Reviews, Wisecrackin With Winter, Knowing, Robin Williams, Pajama Pants, and Piecing It Together podcast. I've also got another reading from our 100% fake sponsor with a 100% real website, trumpoetry.com. And it wouldn't feel like an episode of Succotash, the comedy soundcast without at least one bursto durst from raging moderate Will Durst, who is still recovering from having suffered a stroke last October. In 2019, for those of you listening in the far-off future, or even just 2021, really. I'd also like to point out that one of my favorite things to do on this show, as I've been hosting it, is to try to the best of my ability to read the episode descriptions exactly as written, with the exception of links or commercials or promo codes. I look at it this way. A soundcast is something that's unlikely to be heard as the way you first experience it. Unless you have friends who play podcasts as entertainment for each other to enjoy, and someone hears it by accident, you generally will intersect with its description first, especially on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud, where you can read about a show before you decide to listen to it. So, if you are taking the time to write what is basically your, hey, listen to me commercial for your show, then I'm going to honor that time someone took to try to describe what you would potentially be about to listen to. Minus non-episode or show descriptive text, as previously mentioned. I have to write some of these things myself, and I often wonder what those words I write to describe the nonsense I get up to would sound like if someone other than me spoke them aloud. Anyway, on with the show. Thank you for listening. First up tonight, Games for the End of the World from Joe. That's capital J, capital O, capital E. The show's description reads, what game would you save if you could pick just one? Which character would you choose to protect you in the apocalypse? These are the big questions in life, and each week we'll invite a different guest into our apocalypse bunker and dissect their life through gaming. Why? Because it's the end of the world, and what else is there but gaming? The section of conversation I've selected for you is from the episode posted on the 13th of November 2019, titled Jane Douglas, Role-Playing Games, World of Warcraft, and Tricking Her Mum to Get Her Dad a PS1 for Father's Day. A PS1, by the way, for those of you who may not know, is a game console created by Sony, released in the mid-1990s. And in this episode description, it says, professional gamer, presenter, and co-editor and founder of Outside Xbox, Jane Douglas, pays our jack of all games, Tom Deacon, a visit in the bunker this week. They chat World of Warcraft, role-playing games, and persuading her mum to buy her dad a PlayStation for Father's Day.
The early career, so how did it start then to getting into the presenting that you do for the gaming?
How did I get into the presenting side?
Yeah.
Well, I worked for GameSpot for a while, and that was a combination of video work and also, kind of written reviews and news and articles and what have you. And I really enjoyed the video presenting side of it, and there was a strong video focus. Like, they were moving even more into video while I was there, and that kind of that guided me into like the video sort of focus that we have now. I founded Outside Xbox with Andy and Mike, and we're all from kind of trad media backgrounds. Mike was a magazine journalist. I came from GameSpot. Andy actually worked for Microsoft for Xbox initially. So our background isn't like what you think of as the traditional YouTuber. Like, obviously, like, those guys and girls are extremely successful and they do their own thing. We don't come from the kind of vlogging background, the sort of like iconic like bedroom vlogger who, you know, talks about video games.
You're from the research background, I guess.
We have a little bit of a writing background, and I think that was our way into making videos, and that happened to be on YouTube. And it wasn't quite the kind of classic iconic YouTuber style.
Explaining what you do there.
Ooh, on YouTube?
Yeah.
Well, so we have a YouTube channel. That's like our main focus. And we make 5 videos. On Outside Xbox, we have 5 videos a week. So a video every, you know, working day. And that's been keeping us pretty busy. I got to say, we're not an enormous team. It's not like we're the tip of the iceberg and there's like this massive production team.
Yeah.
Like,
it's all hands on deck. We all have to...
Almost. We have a couple of amazing video producers, James and John. Hi, guys. But...
I don't know if they made it in the apocalypse. I hate to say. Yeah.
No, they'll make it. If anyone's going to make it, it's James and John. They're doing okay. They're in their own bunker, much nicer bunker somewhere. But
that's a bit harsh. I mean, I've put a lot of effort into this.
Don't get me wrong. This
it's
is
fine.
amazing.
No, it's
but
fine.
If I know James and John, it'll be fabulous. The lighting will be amazing.
They probably have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we don't have Wi-Fi.
Don't have it down here.
Oh,
I've tried. I've turned it on and off a few times. It still isn't working.
We've reset the router. We've checked the NAT settings. There's just... I don't know if I can last the apocalypse if there's not going to be Wi-Fi, I'll be honest with you.
So the team is small. You put
team is small. Yeah, it's kind of a... I don't want to call it a treadmill, but it's a little bit of a treadmill in that, you know, you're committing to a certain output of video, and that does keep you extremely busy. And we're trying, as we kind of develop and evolve, to like find space to do things around that, to do, you know, to pursue other interests and make videos, you know, in different styles and to do other things. Like, of late, we're really getting into Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So it's
that
time.
Stranger Things related?
I mean, it's not unrelated. I think we started a little bit before. No, I can't remember. It must have been around the same time. But I think D&D, tabletop RPGs generally are just having like such a moment, and that...
Would you say resurgence?
I would say resurgence, yeah. Absolutely. And the thing is, we hadn't, obviously, up until a few years ago, we hadn't played any like tabletop RPGs, and we didn't really get them. And then once you start, you realise it's just improv theatre for game nerds. Like, and I say that with love, you know, it's improv theatre with dice and rules, and it is so good. It's perfect for us kind of like show off gamers, I think. Yeah, and we're having so much fun with it. So we found a little time around the kind of YouTube content schedule to do live shows, to take like D&D to kind of conventions and also just like get together in like the basement of a pub and play some D&D. Yeah.
It's a bit more sort of like one-on-one rather than being on the online world. Does it sort of like that social aspect? There's the amount of cafes, the amount of places I've seen with board games in, which seems to be the new thing. If you want to just like say, if there's anybody like you back to when early days where you were at your friend's house and her mum was like, you need to go outside. Perfect. We'll go and do some tabletop.
We'll go play a board game.
RPG.
It's very social, and it's more, I guess it's more intimate in a way than social gaming. You know, you're at a table, it's conversation based. Like, there are dice, but it's really like
people coming out of their shells, I guess. How difficult is it to pick up? You know, for anybody who's gaming now, who loves the kind of a through line, a storyline, but feel like take it to the next level. Is that the next level amongst other friends, peers? Yes,
I feel like tabletop role-playing games are like what video game RPGs are aspiring to. It's that infinite dialogue choices. Like, I want to go here, I want to try doing this, I want to romance this guy, I want to kiss this girl, and like that's what I want from an RPG, and that's what D&D and that's what tabletop RPGs do for you. Is that your dungeon master, your storyteller, your kind of game master is like, okay, how do you want to do that? Roll me this dice. So it's the infinite possibilities of the imagination, and I feel like in a certain way that's what some games kind of aspire to. So it kind of closes that gap, and in a really social way where you get to have that adventure with your friends.
You can reach out to Jane Douglas on Twitter at JaneDouglas. You can reach out to the host, Tom Deacon, at TOM, DEACON. And at the Joe website, you can find more on politics, football, and sports. And their Twitter handle is at capital J, capital O, capital E, underscore, lowercase c, O, underscore, lowercase u, k. You can also go to www.joe.co.uk. Next up, Refried Reviews from hotarl.com. That's AURAL. And right to the point, the show description says, whether it's deconstructing a classic or autopsying a flop, we rewatch movies so you don't have to. The clip is from the second episode, posted November 21st, 2013, and in its description it says, after a summary of Rian Johnson's work, JP stumbles through the plot synopsis of his pick, the 2012 film Looper.
Okay, so we have our basic setup. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I forget exactly where it falls in the chronology, but does he spend the night with a stripper, or she's a hooker that he's paying for or something that he's a regular client of? And you can tell that sort of he's more into it than she is.
Yeah.
And he sees it as his redemption. And
well, it's when he gets told to kill an hour, because at the beginning he goes to the Belle Aurore Club, which is the club that Abe operates out of the back of, because since we're in the noir half of the film, the big boss has to operate out of the back of a nightclub.
Sure.
A classy fucking nightclub. But yeah, they after the whole thing with Seth happens that you probably want to talk about, Abe tells him to kill an hour, and then he actually ends up in the hooker's room. But at the beginning, he goes and is like, "Oh, are you working tonight?" And she says, "Yeah, but some Gat man already bought me up." Gat men are just the names for enforcers in this universe. So he can't have her for the evening. In the biblical sense.
They won't know each other that evening. So we have our basic setup, and then when things really start to go awry is when his friend Seth, Paul Dano, shows up desperately to his house late at night.
Which, by the way, what else has he been in?
Paul Dano?
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood was the last sort of big thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And he looks close enough to Lucas Haas that they sort of blur together, especially because they've both been in Rian Johnson movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Lucas Haas in Inception, wasn't it? Who was the first architect?
I think so.
It was one of them, but I think it was Lucas Haas.
I don't know. We'll look it up later.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, so he shows up to Joe's apartment late at night and is clearly desperate, and then we get like sort of little cutaway information about this, sort of worst case scenario that's clearly happened, where Seth, his future self, was sent back, and Seth hesitated because you could hear him humming. Was it?
He was humming a song that Seth's mom used to sing when he was a kid.
Yeah. So
this movie does so well is all these little like visual and auditory ways that people communicate, like from the future to the past. Like we'll talk about more of those later, but like there's a lot of really clever uses of time travel. Like, if you showed up and you wanted to convince your past self not to kill you, you'd probably try to make them nostalgic for their early childhood and like appeal to that humanity, especially if you knew them so well because, they're you.
Sure. Yeah, So Seth hesitates, and his future self manages to break free and run, which, we get pretty clearly from the context and how seriously they're taking it, that this is about the worst thing that can happen if you're a looper.
Yeah.
And that things are not going to turn out well, pretty much regardless. Yeah. So he's begging Joe to hide him.
Yeah.
And then sort of the bad guys arrive at the door almost immediately thereafter, reaffirming how serious this is.
Yeah.
He agrees to hide his friend, and then they take him back. They take Joe back to Abe, and they don't know that he's hidden Seth. So there's sort of a long sequence of Abe intimidating Joe.
A fantastic scene, by
the
way.
Yeah.
Like, I want to diffuse that tension right now. I'm not going to break your hand. I'm just going to talk at you for a while, and then you're going to give your friend up.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Daniels isn't in a lot of the movie, but he's great.
Yeah, I think he actually turns in the strongest performance in the movie. Like, I find him to be the most indelible. He's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially in that scene where you're brushing up on your Mandarin? No, French. You should go to China. I'm from the future. Go to China.
Yeah, probably the best joke in that movie.
Yeah, it's great.
And so there's basically an intimidation scene where Abe convinces Joe to give up Seth based on money. He threatens to take half his silver that he's been stowing away. because Joe is smarter than most of the loopers, and he's trying to actually work up some savings to live the rest of his life and hopefully get away by moving out of the country.
Yeah.
And so he gives up.
The film endears us to Joe through his use of basic financial sensibilities.
Yes, I know about savings. That's a thing in my life.
You can reach out to JP Cutter on Twitter at @J_P_CUTTER. His co-host John Verone is at I Better Be Funny, which is I BETTER, BEFUNNY. The show is at Refried Reviews, which is REFRIED, REVIEWS. There haven't been any new shows published since July 6th of 2017, but that doesn't mean anything, really. Not in the world of soundcasting. And next up is Wisecrackin With Winter, from Mike Winter and Mitchell Haugerud. And the show description is to the point. It says, "This is your home for current happenings with a twist." Mike Winter sits down with his guests to talk news, sports, politics, and anything else he can fill his show with. You will enjoy the endless banter, laugh your ass off, and maybe learn something new. Disclaimer: Wisecrackin is not for everyone. Please consult your physician before attempting this on your own. Now, the clip is from an episode from January 28th, 2020, called Name That Hospital Bill Amount. It was pointed out to me by Mr. Mike Winter on Twitter. In the description, it says, "Name that hospital bill amount. What a show! Mike channels his inner wink woolery as he hosts contestants Emma and producer Paul for America's favorite new in-podcast game show where they guess the amounts of different line items for a 3-day hospitalization. No matter all the arguments we might have, every American can agree that healthcare in America is about the best bargain on the planet. The gang discusses their memories of the late Kobe Bryant and brings you useless speculation about why the helicopter he, his daughter, and 7 others were aboard crashed in the hills of SoCal. Emma lightens things up by giving us more schooling on the latest social media apps, Ouija boards, and awesome videos on YouTube. Hey, it's the big football match this Sunday, the name of which nobody but official sponsors are allowed to speak. Who's going to win? The club from Western Missouri or the squad from the southern San Francisco Bay Area? Find out who the Big G is picking. And find out how Paul's been doing with Indiana's recently legalized mobile sports betting."
Okay, and we're back. We're back. Okay, Emma and Paul.
Barely had a chance to catch my breath.
Oh, I know. Well, let's
Let's
sure.
just get right back into it.
We're just going to get right back into it.
I'm having so much fun. How about you, Emma?
I've got a golly time.
This is a fun game. Oh, God, I just love having you two here. Okay, we're getting right down to it, gang. There are 3 questions left. 3 questions. Right. We got to score a 3-2. Paul's in the lead over there in Indiana. Okay, we're looking for recovery room. Recovery room. That's after surgery. You're first in. What do you got?
9,789.
9,789. Not on the mark. Paul, chance to steal.
Flat fee, 2,500.
Ooh, you're both so far off. I don't know if I can award a point. We were looking for... Oh, actually, I was looking at the wrong line item, judges. Okay. We were looking for $8,775. Who was closer?
I was.
Congratulations, Emma. That's 3 points apiece. 3 points apiece. Moving into the last 2 questions. How are you guys doing?
Let's get this bread.
How are the nerves doing? Emma?
They're just fine.
Okay, and what are you going to be studying in school when you go to college in 4 years?
How to guess prices.
You can't do that. Who would go to college and learn how to do that? How about you, Paul? You're a college graduate. What did you study?
I studied geography, but I really wish I'd studied medical billing.
Yeah, shouldn't you have? You'd be rich right now. Rich! Oh, my God. I'm having such a good time. And the audience loves it. Okay, let's see here. Next question. Tough one. Room and board for 3 days.
What?
Room and board for 3 days. What did it cost to stay there?
So that's like bed sheets, a remote control, and some bad food.
Not sure about that exactly. It's just a bed in the hospital for 3 days. What? You're first to buzz in. What do we got?
12,000 flat.
Ooh, just missed it. Paul, chance to steal.
Ooh, well, I was going to say a decent hotel would only cost you $100 or $200 a night.
Right.
And a hospital room's not really as nice.
No, it isn't.
I'd say it should cost about $10,500.
Oh, you are wrong, but you were closer than Emma. What we were looking for was $43,681 for 3 days. Oh, God bless America. Nothing wrong with the medical system here, right, Emma?
Right.
$43,000 for 3 days in a bed in the hospital. Okay, what do we got for a score again, gang? I forget.
I got 4. It's 4-3.
4-3. 4-3. Oh, it's going to come right down to the last question. Might have to have a tiebreaker.
Is it?
Emma, you need this one.
Okay.
You need.
I was afraid this was going to be worth 2 points. It's only worth 1 point, though.
Oh, 1 point.
Okay.
1 point. Emma, Paul, total cost we're looking for supplies. Who's first? Emma. Oh. What do we got for supplies?
$15,000.
15,000?
Yeah.
Not on the mark. Paul, chance to wrap this up.
$39.99.
Paul, you're way off. Oh, Paul, you're way off. Oh, so way off. But Emma, you were closer.
Cents.
And the total cost of supplies was $14,295. So Emma, you've got that point with your guess of $15,000. So we're coming down to it now. Special bonus question. Bonus question to go ahead and win this round or the game of guess the total of this medical bill.
Pat, before you do the final bonus question, can you tell us again what we're playing for?
You're playing for a brand new car! That's right! A brand new 2020 VW Bug. We got it parked right outside with a ribbon on the top for the winner of today's. Instead of the Bug, what we're willing to do is give you medical insurance.
Oh, my God.
Medical insurance with the studio or a VW Bug.
I'd rather take the Bug.
Both of you don't have medical insurance, so lots to think about.
Don't forget to follow Wisecrackin with Winter on the Instagram, the Twitters, and the Facebook. The Twitters is at GetWisecrackin. That is GetWisecrackin. You can email the show at wisecrackinwithwinter@yahoo.com. And that is still Wisecrackin, not with a G. You can go to getwisecrackin.com. Mitchell Haugerud, I'm not sure I'm saying his name correctly, I apologize, is at MHAUGERUD on Twitter, and producer Paul Lambie is at capital P, capital J, capital L, AMBIE. I do not know if Emma is on Twitter.
This episode of Succotash is sponsored in part by TrumPoetry.com, a chronological ode to a fake muse. Enjoy a rhyming spin on the news of the day every day, as well as over 500 archived daily verses thoroughly covering the White House, America, and the world with a sticky caramel coating that's impossible to remove. That's TRUMPoetry.com. Everything you need to know in rhyming couplets. TrumPoetry.com.
Yes, TrumPoetry.com. Got a selection of 3, but they're all tiny ones. They're pretty fun. And by tiny, I just mean like limerick length, basically. Some of my favorite types of poems are limericks. If I can say it. Some of my favorite types of poems are limericks. Or actually, I should say one of my favorite types of poem is limerick. Or is a limerick. One of my favorite types of poem is a limerick? Aha. Yes. Anyway. So these are all from February. From February 5th, 2020, number 350. It was far less a speech than campaign, as eloquence circled the drain. Some half-truths to peddle, and Rush got a medal. Then Nancy made her response plain. And from the 7th of February 2020, number 348. With the White House's East Room outfitted, he bragged about being acquitted. He went on quite a while, and elsewhere meanwhile, the Statue of Liberty vomited. And in from February 18th, 2020, number 337. This 4-day work week has begun. I hope yesterday you had fun, kicking back or at play on President's Day, celebrating them all except one.
Hello, friends. Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? Well, we offer you Henderson Space Pants. Yes, Space Pants. Say it with me. Space Pants. Here's the story behind Henderson Space Pants. A few years ago, the head of Henderson's procurement office heard a rumor from a guy who knew a guy who had a sister who worked in the factory that makes the bolts that hold on the rear tailgates of the heavy-duty utility vehicles that were driven by a man who lived down the street from a woman that knew a mailman who once delivered a registered letter to a man who used to work as a substitute gate sentry at Cape Canaveral. Okay? Well, it seems this fellow had it on good authority that NASA was going to be putting in a huge order for space pants for the astronauts who fly the space shuttles. Based on that hot tip, Henderson's Pants started churning out pairs of space pants by the lunar module full. Well, when NASA ended up pulling the plug on the whole shuttle program, plenty of people around Henderson's had freeze-dried egg on their faces. Only then did the fine folks at Henderson's discover the order was to have been for space suits, not space pants. It turns out there is no such thing as space pants. Until now, Henderson's has warehouses full of the suckers, and you can wear them into space or anywhere else you care to squeeze into with your vacuum-packed ass. Originally designed for, well, the NASA astronauts. Haven't you been listening? Henderson Space Pants are available wherever mothballed airless flyboys shop. That's Henderson's, makers of fine slacks and merkins since 1457. And now back to Succotash.
Pants in space. And coming in at number 4 is a soundcast called Knowing, Robin Williams. I have to say colon because otherwise it comes off as Knowing Robin Williams, which, It's from Macmillan Publishers. Its show description reads, chances are Robin Williams has made you laugh, cry, or cry laughing, at least once in your lifetime. From sweaty stand-up riffs to sitcom mayhem as Marc from Ork, to a powerful Oscar-winning performance in Good Will Hunting, Robin was an artist who was constantly pushing his craft. But behind these displays of brilliance was an isolated and often misunderstood man. From Macmillan Podcasts, Knowing Robin Williams takes you inside the lawless and brilliant mind of one of America's most beloved comedians. Join New York Times reporter David Itzkoff and host Christy Westgard as they share never-before-heard interviews and thoughtful analysis to celebrate the life and legacy of a comedic genius. The clip is from the episode posted October 27, 2019, titled The Comet, in which it says in the description, Robin finds solace in a lonely childhood through comedy and defies his father's wishes to eventually pursue acting at Juilliard, but his pinball energy proves hard to contain in the structure of academia.
Certainly the biggest culture shock that Robin experienced, at least in that era of his life, was moving from Michigan, moving from Bloomfield Hills, where it was very buttoned down and small C conservative and traditional, then moving out to Marin, which is just north of San Francisco, in 1969 at the tail end of the Summer of Love, and suddenly ending up in this community where everything feels very open and a little bit bohemian and really quite unlike anything he'd experienced to that point.
It seems like Robin took to the West Coast lifestyle pretty easily. So come fall, he begins his freshman year at Claremont Men's College. And from what I know, Claremont is kind of buttoned up, which makes me wonder how Robin would have fit into this environment.
The kinds of students who were going to Claremont, certainly in that era, were young men who were expected to kind of pursue traditional white-collar careers. And Robin himself, he didn't quite know what he wanted to be or why he was going there, but he kind of imagined maybe he would end up as a diplomat or something like that. And certainly that was done to please his father or to fulfill a desire that his father had, and that he would get bankrolled, at least in terms of his tuition, while he went there. But it became pretty clear very quickly that that was not necessarily where Robin's future resided.
Robin took a theater class at Scripps, and by the first session, he was hooked. He and 18 classmates formed an improv group called Karma Pie, and they met twice a week to perform these free shows. And he became quite notorious on campus for his motor mouth charm, which helped him get more than just friends.
Even though he does come from a family that has money, he is often, broke and penniless, or just has nothing in his pockets and is constantly scrounging and borrowing from other people and living off of their good kindness. And some of it is the sort of bohemian spirit of that era and the trust that people had that they could just get by on each other, and the kinds of people that Robin happened to surround himself with. I think it also comes from his own principle of wanting to be independent from his parents, and certainly from his father, not feeling like he had to depend on them or on their money. And if that left him flat broke at times, then so be it. But at least he felt like he had the dignity or the independence that he wasn't borrowing from them.
Between Karma Pi and theater, Robin began failing his other classes. For his final macro econ paper, he simply wrote, "I really don't know, sir." And finally, Rob had had enough and withdrew Robin from Claremont. When he heard about his son's plans to pursue acting, he had one piece of advice for Robin.
My father, up there, the man who, when I said I wanted to be an actor, he said, "Wonderful, just have a backup profession like welding."
Robin actually attended a few welding courses at a trade school, but that didn't go far. So he ends up enrolling in the College of Marin. And this was a public community college, which I think is great. But did Robin at all feel like this was a step down?
I think that the College of Marin was chosen for obvious reasons, that Robin could continue to pursue his academics, but also because it had a very strong theater program, particularly for a kind of community college. It was a 2-year program that Robin spent 3 years in, and not because he was a bad student, but because he was really into the theater and really excelled at it. You can read early reviews of Robin that are written by the local newspapers in Marin County that are giving him great notices and praising him for the talent that he was already exhibiting.
Robin was taught by James Dunn, a San Rafael native and a Marine Corps veteran who served as a drill instructor in the Korean War. And Dave, there's a theme that you point out that's very telling about Robin's relationship with authority and with his father.
Yeah. Robin, as much as he kind of recoiled at, order and structure, he also responded to that. He thrived in those kinds of structured environments. He knew how to work within them and also how to get around them, and how to go outside the boundaries and then, give you a wink and a smile, and you could almost forgive him for it.
You can reach out to Dave Itzkoff on Twitter at DITZKOFF. Christy Westgard can be reached at capital KRISTY, capital WESTGARD. Macmillan Podcasts can be reached at MAC_PODCASTS, and you can go to us.macmillan.com/podcasts/podcast/knowing. Yes, that is the word podcasts followed by the word podcast, singular. So that's plural before singular. Longtime listeners of Succotash might recall that we did a special memorial episode of Robin Williams back in September 15th of 2014. It's episode 94, and it's called Rememberin' Robin, and it's definitely worth listening to. So yeah, there's that. All right, in the number 5 slot, a show called Pajama Pants, and it's credited as being by Rob Eiler and Kasim G. In the show description, it says, "We are Robert Eiler and Kasim G," and then in parentheses, along with special guest Jamie Lynn Sigler, discussing a whole lot of nothing but everything at the same time, in pajama pants. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday morning. So that is Robert Eiler and Jamie Lynn Sigler. You might recall played Anthony Jr. and Meadow Soprano on The Sopranos for, 8, 9 years? It was a good amount of time there. I don't know. I've seen all of the episodes, but I cannot remember what the exact size of the chunk of my life it was that those occurred over. So, my apologies. The clip is from an episode from January 27th, 2020. And the description says, Dr. Drew joins Pajama Pants and weighs in on gender reveal parties, being a good listener, and what's wrong with Rob.
From 16 years old to 31, I never spent 24 hours sober. Ever.
I'm glad you're here.
If it was like, yeah, like I would, it was night. If it was like, cause when I worked on Sopranos, I never fucked around. But then as soon as we fucking wrapped, like I would make a bowl out of tinfoil and had weed on me and then drinking and this. But so something I actually wanted to talk to you about and figure out if it was, what do you think about this is, so at, Sopranos ended for me when I was like 22, and at 23 I had my first anxiety attack, and that's when I started benzos, and that was, and I either took benzos or drank every day for 8 years.
Unfortunately, heavy cannabis can trigger the panic. I understand you were also losing stuff, and you had a big transition, but
yeah,
it's I can't tell you how many times I see people with overwhelming panic from heavy cannabis.
So what I wanted to figure out is like, because right at the end of Sopranos is when I had my first anxiety attack, and also,
and by the way, they normally start 18 to 22. It's just when they start,
right? And then right at the last, so Jamie has MS, and the last scene of Sopranos was the last time she said she was ever able to run. After that, she couldn't anymore, and I just like those things for me.
It's a lot.
Kind of like where it was like, wow, Sopranos, and like during big change in your life and loss and stuff like that, that's when things really...
I had panic when I was 19. Horrible. Disabling. It's awful. And I wondered, I was smoking a little pot around that time too, and I wondered if that helped trigger it, because I've seen so many patients with that. It scares me now to smoke pot. I'd love to try all this great stuff that's around, but it scares me. I'm going to trigger panic again. Yeah. But yeah, panic is horrible, right?
So were you an addict?
No.
You were
I'm not an addict. I have depression, panic, generalized anxiety, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Because I had never felt anxiety in my entire life. And when people used to say it, I was of that like, oh, you're just being a fucking and then when you felt it for the first time, and my friend said, oh, you could just take a Xanax. And then that was for nobody ever.
Panic disorder.
Yeah.
Got a diagnosis for you. Panic disorder.
Yep.
Right, that
panic
benzodiazepine addiction. Got that.
Yeah. And then that was
alcoholism. Got that.
Every day for
or alcohol use disorder, we call it.
For 8 years, I was taking benzos.
Horrible.
And then
who gave you that? Kill that guy.
Well, yeah. I mean,
let's murder him.
Yeah. It's not a doctor. It was not a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, still.
Yeah. I was never really getting my stuff from doctors until the end, when I went to see a specialist, and he
took you off.
Said, if you stop getting off of that, we'll do this program,
Good.
this, and
that guy needs an award.
Yeah.
Did you guys have Loveline in New York? Because when did Loveline go national?
Yeah.
In the mid to late 90s. It was Z100.
So
it was Z100, but it was midnight to 3 at Z100.
Catherine's a friend of mine.
Catherine McCord?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Please say hi for me.
I will.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah. I just saw Diane Farr, who was the one before.
Oh, I remember
her.
when she guest, or I don't. She was like the host for a while. Yeah,
Diane. Yeah.
And then she guest hosted.
She and Adam are buddies now after all these years. It's very weird.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So look, I went to school out here in Southern California, Newbury Park, and
at Newbury Park in the city
by
of Thousand
Oaks.
Got it.
And we would listen to the show every night at 10. Almost every night, because it was really the only way we could get like real information.
Yeah, I know. That's why I started it. I thought, what would I have wanted?
Okay, so this is where I got to suck you down. Okay. This is that show. What that show did for me, and then up until because I am in recovery, and every time I was getting close to when I was hitting what I thought was going to be a rock bottom, I had your voice echo in my head, right? The signs of being an alcoholic. I remember you specifically saying things like drinking in the face of consequences, momentum.
Yeah.
And I know
denial,
all that stuff. And then 12-step has its own definition, but all those things lined up. But your voice specifically, because it was the only one. I didn't have my parents there. Well, I mean, they were there, but they weren't there to tell me what was, maybe I was struggling with a thing that I could get help for. I didn't have everyone that I, was friends with was also drinking the same amount, but, they could stop when they wanted to stop. A lot of them did. Some of them still, I think, struggle with that. But that show specifically made such a big impact. And I know you get this all the time, but this is my opportunity to just say thank you. Because, I entered a program, and I got a sponsor, and I sponsor guys, and
awesome.
and it's been, I have 3 years coming up, and it's
a big deal.
You can email your questions to askpajamapants@gmail.com. You can call and leave them a voicemail at 201-972-5262. That is 201-972-5262. You can follow the guest, Dr. Drew, on Twitter at DRDREW. Robert Eiler appears to be only on Instagram You can get him at Pajama Pants Podcast, apparently. That's what it says. So that is PAGAMAPANTSPODCAST. Kassem can be reached on Twitter at KASSEMG. And since I'm including other people's Instagrams here, his Instagram is actually GMESSAK. It's Kassem backwards. I just figured that out after reading it out loud. Jamie Lynn Siegler is on Twitter at capital JAMIE, capital L, capital SIGLER. And on Instagram, she is JAMIELYNNSIGLER. You can also watch the show on YouTube. That's Pajama Pants Podcast. And the show can be reached on Twitter at Pajama Pants Pod, PAJAMAPANTSPOD. PAJAMAPANTS. Hooray for Santa Claus. Nope, doesn't work. All right, anyway. Oh, yeah, and you can also find them at apparently simplecast.com. It's pajamapants.simplecast. Simple is SIMPLECAST. And finally tonight for clips, we have Piecing It Together podcast, which is from the All Points West Network. The show description says, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspired them. A good movie is the result of a large number of people, both in front of and behind the camera, combining to create a piece of art. But what about the movies that came before those that inspired those filmmakers to make the movie? On Piecing It Together, we figure out what the clear and not so clear influences were that make up the movies we love. The clip is from the episode titled Guava Island. It's featuring David Quinones from April 16th, 2019. In its description, it says, on the 57th episode of Piecing It Together, returning co-host David Quinones and I discuss Childish Gambino's 50-minute semi-feature, Guava Island, which debuted on Amazon Prime during his Coachella set. Part film, part music video collection. It's a unique vision, as we should all expect from the team behind Atlanta and Childish Gambino's This Is America music video. Puzzle pieces include Lemonade, Spirited Away, Inside Llewellyn Davis, and Sorry to Bother You.
So yeah, let me go to my next puzzle piece. So I this one kind of goes along with Lemonade as well, and that is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. But again, I'm going before I get into any of the substance of what the what the story is and what the setting is and all that, talking about mainly just the inspiration of stringing music videos together into some kind of a narrative, which I mean, Moonwalker is just it's so great for people who loved that music at that time, and like it was just so larger than life, and putting those amazing songs together into this and it's kind of ridiculous at the same time as it genuinely is awesome. And I think Guava Island is taking some really great songs. I mean, these recent tracks from Childish Gambino are really great tracks, and fitting them together this way, I think they did a really great job of kind of capturing that same kind of thing. And then also to that same point, I mean, some of Childish Gambino's dance moves, I think,
very evocative of MJ. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Some of his
very influenced by Michael Jackson, I think. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Moonwalker, rare movie where the video game was better than it, though.
Yeah. Which video game? Because there was
Sega Genesis, Sega Genesis video game where you fight the zombies and all that stuff. And
I liked both of them actually, but yeah, I agree with you. Though. The Genesis one's better than the arcade, but
absolute
rare occurrence of that.
Yeah. Which I guess I'll jump to my number 5 then, because I had 5, but I mean it goes part and parcel with what you just said, because mine is 1978's The Wiz, which is obviously, as most people remember, Sidney Lumet directed, starring Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Nipsey Russell. Same thing, right? Musical score tying together the story, and I put this together because apparently I'm I like a lot of the singles that Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, I suppose, has come out with in the last 2 albums he's done. But what I read was that big fans of his say that this movie ties together themes of this movie is an actual sort of cohesive piece that brings together a lot of the themes from his last 2 albums, and the music was telling this sort of loosely connected story, and that these numbers weren't just they weren't just shoehorned in. They were actually, like intentional, and that this movie was an intentional narrative project that brought together these the music that he's been making. And from what I understand, there's really like two Childish Gambinos. There's the pre-2015 Childish Gambino, who was just kind of just another rapper that wasn't really that great. I mean, like, I remember that Childish Gambino, and like he had a couple songs that were interesting or funny, but he was just, I think
he was most notable for like adding nerd culture into hip hop.
Yeah, he was like a discount version of Odd Future. I don't know if you ever got into Odd Future.
No, I never did.
Yeah, Odd Future, like that moment of like 2007, 2008, funny hip hop, nerd hip hop kind of coming out. That was that moment, right? And he was one of that group of rappers that kind of had their moment during that time. But anyway, back to my pick, The Wiz. I mean, this was an incredible movie. In looking up this movie, it's actually not very highly rated. I can't believe that. I thought that this was like an AFI like top 100 movie or something, but apparently it's a lowly rated movie. I loved it. I remember loving it growing up, and it reminds me a lot of the sort of the whimsy and the fun. Stylistically, we always talk about, like, usually when I'm on this show with you, what I'll talk about is one that has like a similar tone or a similar style. It might not have the same story, which it doesn't. The Wiz doesn't have the same story, but the way that The Wiz was made felt a lot like it was like the warm tonality and the beautiful consideration that was taken into the presentation of the movie. I could see Hiro Murai being a kind of person who was, very influenced by Lumet.
Sure.
So yeah, I had The Wiz.
Absolutely.
You can reach out to the host, David Rosen, at By David Rosen. That's BYDAVIDROSEN. The co-host for the episode, David Quinones, at capital DAVID _QUINONES. The show at Piecing Pod, which is at capital PIECING, capital POD. The main website is piecingpod.com. Piecing Pod is spelled the same way as before. And lastly, tonight, it's time for our Burst o' Durst. It's one of two that we have left. And and before I play it, I would just like to say that you can send your Get Well cards to Wildurst, WILLDURST, P.O. Box 225126. It's P.O. Box 225126 in San Francisco, California, zip code 94122. This burst is from October 4th, 2019. It's called Daring Daring, in which our intrepid correspondent skitters about the ongoing circus currently raging inside the Beltway.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice examples of unimpeachable humor. Washington right now is vibrating like coffee in a cup holder of a Jeep with bad shocks trying to ride railroad tracks over a bridge, because there is substantial evidence that the President of the United States withheld financial aid to Ukraine until they agreed to assist him in the upcoming election by digging up dirt on Joe Biden and family. Some of that evidence consists of Trump's own admission. Then he didn't just double down, he quintupled down by publicly asking China to do the same thing. First he leverages Ukraine, then China. Who's next? Wakanda? Ruritania? Fredonia? He's already got Absurdistan's support, a.k.a. Fox News. Either he doesn't believe he can commit a crime, or doesn't think anybody cares, or considers himself invincible. This was no surprise. Everybody knew it was bound to happen. You cut enough corners, eventually all you got left is a hole, hopefully one big enough to hide in, which is what staffers and appointees are looking for right now. The problem with swimming with Donald Trump is he constantly poops in the pool and expects everyone to pretend not to notice. Then, when they try to get out, no one will lend them a towel. He's daring Congress by saying, yeah, I did it, and I'll do it again, and who's going to do anything about it? You? Right. You in what army? Even though he's under fire for corrupt abuse of power, the House, controlled by Democrats, decides this information is so critical, they spring into action and take a 2-week recess. But when they get back, they're expected to buy a ticket on the impeachment train without any idea where it's going, when it'll get there, or how much it's going to cost. And checked bags are extra. For Succotash, the comedy soundcast, I'm Will Durst. Daring.
You can still reach out to Will Durst on Twitter, I imagine. Somebody has to be monitoring it, I suppose. And it is at Will Durst, WILLDURST. And you can go to willdurst.com to find the Will Durst Journal, which is comedy for people who read or know someone who does. Thank you for your contributions to the show over the years, Mr. Durst. We all appreciate it over here. Get well soon. Yes, it's the end of the show again. Here we are together, and thank you for spending time with us. You know, I wouldn't describe the overall experience of putting together a show like Succotash, the comedy soundcast, as being particularly difficult. I enjoy listening to soundcasts a great deal, so that's no fuss. I'd be doing that anyway, because I enjoy hearing other people's conversations more than I ever realized I would. I'm not the type to eavesdrop in general, because people don't often like it when they find out you've been doing that, but with a soundcast, they invite you to listen. And sometimes it's the only way you might have exposure to some very creative minds that exist out there in the world. I really enjoy the idea of being able to share parts of those conversations with you. I enjoy the writing, recording, and editing of the episodes. All of that is not what I would necessarily call easy, but it's certainly not what I would call difficult. No, the difficult part has always been this part, saying goodbye. I mean, I could just keep it simple. I could say goodbye and cue the music. I just don't think it would be right to do so. And now that we are so near the end of our run, at least until the hiatus is over, I'm reminded of all the kindness that has been shown to this program over the years, and how a relatively unknown format, such as the podcast, perhaps permanently rebranded as a soundcast one day, has become so widely used throughout the world as a way to achieve conversations and communicate to anyone interested in listening. Thank you all for your interest. It means the world to us here at Succotash. So, for Marc Hershon, Joel Paulino, Will Durst, Scott Carvey, and Bill Haywatt, I'd like to wish you nothing but happiness in your lives. And thank you for sharing us with others. For that is what we mean when we gently remind you to please pass the Succotash.
You've been listening to Succotash Clips, the comedy soundcast with your host, Tyson Saner. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants and Imagine Your Company's name right here. Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher Smart Radio, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on Dunder, on Blitzen, on iHeartRadio, and on a laughable app. You can hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at TysonSaner@succotashshow.com. Or call into the Succotash hotline at our toll call number, 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
You can also upload clips from your favorite comedy soundcasts directly to us by using our direct upload link at hightail.com/u/Succotash. Production of Succotash is overseen by Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, hosted by Tyson Saner. Our executive producer is Marc Hershon. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durges. Until next time, I'm your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please pass the Succotash. Goodbye.